Things taking a long time to load.
Oh man, whatever.
Okay, and we are live. All right, we are live. Tonight we'll be discussing the importance of being responsible when you concealed carry and how to be prepared for self-defense. My guest tonight is Rick Ector of Legally Armed in Detroit. Rick, how are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. And you know what? I'm glad for the invitation, the opportunity to speak with your audience, and I'm looking to have a good discussion.
All right. If nobody knows, Rick runs a class year to get as many women armed in Detroit, also known as legally armed in Detroit, and I won't go to what the letters mean or spell.
Right. My logo, if you can see it, is LAID, LAID, and it is quite the attention
Legally armed
grabber. But
in.
right under it, I actually define out what the letters represent. It stands for Legally Armed in Detroit, man. And I've had no shortage of reactions to the shirt, but that's part of the whole marketing aspect of being out there and trying to make yourself a little different from the next person. But it's a great conversation starter. It never gets old, man. Never gets old.
Nope. Uh, I remember from last year when you had Craig DeLuz out there in Michigan.
You say you remember when we had who out there?
Craig DeLuz of Coffee with Craig. Now he does the rundown.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. You know what? He was here in Detroit not too long ago, back when we had our annual shooting event, our community service for Metro Detroit area, where we try to train a lot of women in a relatively short period of time. I was shooting for, pardon the pun
Yeah.
metaphor, I was shooting for a lot more participants, with everything that came back online, as compared to last year. Last year we had almost 2,000 women come through that weekend. This year we trained 1,000. So onward we march,
The
man.
more,
Next year, I think I'll just do a better job of marketing, as if I didn't do a lot of things, but I'll redouble my efforts and do even more marketing. And also, which I think will be the bigger deal, is to make sure I do it on a less busy weekend, probably something in June, middle of June, second,
oh,
third
yeah.
week of June. That should be a more opportune time, and that will lend itself to people coming to see us, as opposed to all the other fun things that folks like to do in the summertime.
Yeah. So when it comes to concealed carry, people always think that when you protect yourself, you don't get arrested or anything, and that is totally wrong.
If I
If
heard you
somebody
correctly,
were to rob someone,
you were saying if you use your firearm in self-defense, are you going to get arrested?
in some cases, I've seen stories where arrested who legally defended themselves. I just watched a story on USCCA's YouTube channel where a guy in Oregon defended himself. Attack, spent 8 years in jail, got divorced, and he finally got a retrial.
Hmm. That's the one thing, man. I can't tell you definitively what's going to happen, in the aftermath of a lethal force encounter. There's a lot of things that go into
Yeah,
that. I mean, you're alluding to, which I think is an excellent point, which is the underlying facts of the interaction and of the case are going to be important. The other thing that is going
yeah,
to come into play is the local jurisdiction, the local politics. Is this a situation in which, they could do an investigation and release you on your recognizance, or they have to hold you for a few days and then send it before the local prosecutor and get a ruling one way or another. And of course, you know,
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you, man, there've been a lot of high profile cases where the case went to the prosecutor. The prosecutor said no bill, and then the community went up in arms, and then they turned around and had another trial. So, you know, you follow, you know, the gun community and the things that some people have to endure, man. You see a lot of interesting things. And I try to tell people, you know, to stay up to date with what's going on, pay attention, and where possible, where feasible, try to get a lesson from each incident that you see, and hope that it will make your encounter, your aftermath, God forbid anything negative ever happen, but hopefully you won't suffer too much as a consequence.
Right. I would say if you're gonna be prosecuted, they're gonna be more in the larger city areas. Portland, Columbus, Detroit, you know, where a lot of the prosecutors and police chiefs are gonna be more left leaning to try to get a law abiding citizen arrested and ruin his life for simply defending himself.
Well, you know, probably due to the fact that most large cities, you know, they lean a certain way politically and tend to not have an affinity for firearms. One thing about Detroit
Yeah.
in recent years is that we had a very pro gun police chief. But if you've been keeping up with what's
James
happening
Craig,
here in
I believe
Detroit,
his name is.
you know that James Craig recently retired, and you know we're still trying to figure out the political opinion of his replacement. But I know he made a statement in the media maybe a week or so ago that, you know, doesn't seem like he's as enthusiastic as former Chief Craig was about citizens carrying guns. But you know, we'll see what
Right.
happens.
I talked with my local sheriff too, and he's on the side where I live at in Ohio. I'm from a small town, and he's very pro gun, so he's for an armed citizenry.
Yeah, you know, and that's a good thing, man. And that unfortunately is something that a lot of voters typically, you know, don't ask before they go into the voting booth. You know, personally, I'm so pro gun, man. I can't vote for an anti gun candidate. If you don't publicly state your views, I will go to one of your campaign stops and ask you, you know, maybe face to face,
Yeah,
one on one, or typically there tends to be attendee, you know, comment section where you can ask a question or make a statement. You know what? I want to know. And the only
yeah,
way I'm going to know is to ask. And these guys, when they ask for our vote, you know what? They usually make campaign stops, man. And it's incumbent upon you that if you care about gun rights, go and ask the question and ask accordingly.
yeah.
But, you know, my thing is, man, that is my litmus test. It's not the only thing that's going to determine whether I vote for you or not. The thing
Right.
that I will say is typically if you're pro gun, that tells me a lot of other positive things about you.
Oh yeah. We got most people who are pro gun are going to be mostly on the conservative side, where they believe in like, hey, you have the right to free speech, speak your mind freely. You have the right to bear arms. You know, we need people who understand what the Constitution is. Especially now, my district of Ohio, my congressman is Jim Jordan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I've heard of him. Yeah, I believe I know exactly who he is. Yeah, wasn't he a veteran?
That I don't know. All I know is he's pro gun, pro freedom, and you know, whenever something comes up in Ohio on gun control or anything, I will call him on it and see if he will urge him to oppose it. And I hear back from either secretary or sometimes get a letter in the mail from him.
Hmm. You know, just a few moments ago, you made a statement I want to respond to. You said that typically, when trying to assess someone's political leanings, you know, and the gun issue is a convenient litmus test. And you know what? For the most part, it is. But some of the things that we saw in some of our larger cities, and Detroit wasn't one of them because we had a great police chief in James Craig. But in many other large
Oh yeah.
metropolitan areas across the country, the police chiefs just pretty much sat on their hands. The police were there when we had all of those riots. Yeah, I'll call them riots and disturbances, and the police didn't act, they just observed. And the citizens of those local communities, they saw a handicapped police department that was restrained from taking action. And that, I believe, had a lot to do with the interest in guns. And it's been
Yeah.
coast to coast, and which is why we've been setting sales record upon sales record for guns. Folks are finally getting it. The Supreme Court has ruled in two separate cases, man, that personal protection and self defense is your responsibility. But when citizens across the country saw their towns being destroyed before their very eyes in their local police departments that failed to act, that was a wake up call. And you know what? People will respond rationally. And the only decision that made sense in the aftermath of some of these shenanigans was to go to a gun shop and buy a gun.
Yeah.
Are you still there? Okay, well, maybe I'm not there. I know I'm not hearing you, but maybe you're hearing me. Maybe if I use the universal signal for I can't hear you, maybe that'll let you know that I can't hear you.
Yeah.
You know what? You can always go back after the fact and edit out the video. We probably have some lag going based on transmission speed. You would think that after dark in the evening that there'd be less people at home, and that we could pretty much do whatever
That's
we
right.
want over the internet, and not worry about
And
whether
now we're
things are going to slow down.
starting to see people who are either anti-gun or on the fence buying guns. And now what we need these people, hey, look, we know you might not have voted for people who are pro-gun, might have voted for people like Biden, you might have voted for senators like Chuck Schumer. Maybe talk to them and, yeah, I'm here. But if you vote, oh no, I'm here. The computer's kind of freezing.
Yeah, when
But
I hear what you say, man, it's like I
I'm
get
here.
it and I understand it for many people, and I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but for some people, the gun question and your fundamental
Anyone?
rights are not sacred. And to me, if you're anti-gun, there's no possible way I can vote for you. And guess what? If everyone on the ballot is anti-gun, and I've had this happen, I will vote for either none of the above, myself, or a cartoon character as a write-in before I just vote for someone because they're on the ballot.
Right. And that's why like when it comes to self-defense too, you need to make sure you're in a good area where they won't press charges like, "Oh, self-defense, you're not going to jail," because in many states and cities, they have different ways where they can get you even if it was legal self-defense. Oh, you could have gotten away, which if you can get away, please get away before you have to use deadly force.
You
Try to
know,
avoid using deadly force at all costs.
in many communities, we have the equivalent of stand your ground, and as long as your life is in imminent danger of great bodily harm, sexual assault, or death, you don't
Yeah,
have to make an attempt to get away before defending yourself. But I do hear your point. I actually am in agreement with your point. If you can somehow safely remove yourself from the scene without having to shoot someone, albeit legally, you probably will have a better outcome. But man, let me tell you, if you absolutely positively have no choice but to defend yourself, by all means do that. And you know what?
yeah,
You'll just have to suffer the consequences. And hopefully, the consequences will just be taken down to the station, maybe held or detained for a spell,
yeah,
and wonder if the prosecutor is going to make a decision one way or the other. Hopefully, you have availed yourself of one of these legal protection plans that exist, that are out there. I tell people, I'm a member of Firearm Legal Protection, FLP. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to have that product, but get something. And heaven forbid you ever in a lethal force encounter, you have to produce your gun, you have to discharge it. Something happens. It's probably a good idea to remember your Fifth Amendment,
yeah,
and make sure that you have someone that can act on your behalf to mitigate the circumstances in the aftermath. I'm not going to tell you what plan to get, even though I'm a member of FLP, Firearm Legal Protection. Get something.
and there's a lot of different carry insurance groups out there. Like you mentioned, FLP, we got Carry Guard, US Law Shield, and USCCA.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of different products out there, and they all pretty much exist for the same reason. How they operate, the nuances, the details, the coverage limits, whether at one particular provider you have different levels of coverage, whether it's the platinum plan, the gold plan, the silver plan, the copper plan,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Something beats nothing, man. And you know what? If for some reason you have nothing, then yeah, it's even more critical to observe your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
yes.
And you know what? Let the local police department and your local prosecutor see if they can put together a case on you in 48 to 72 hours. By
Oh,
all
yeah.
means, don't by all means don't help them.
Yeah, I'm not gonna help them incriminate me if that ever happened. But like I said, where I live at in Ohio, it's a small town, and we don't even have any. We barely get crime where I live, so I don't even carry.
Well, you know what? Okay. I mean, that's a personal decision.
Yeah,
I have a different experience, but of course, I live in a mostly urban area that I'm not going to say is paradise or that is Eden, but I know that
no,
years ago, man, maybe 15, 16 years ago, I thought I lived in a nice, community, and coming home from work as I was parking my car in the garage, I got robbed at gunpoint in my driveway by two younger versions of myself. They might have been very late teens, early 20s, but it happened, man. And it was a rude awakening. And it was the shock to the system that I needed for me to take action. And in the aftermath, believe it or not, I'm actually glad that it happened.
yeah, because I think you said before that you never owned a gun. You never thought you needed one.
Mm-mm. Nah, Didn't need one, but I thought it'd be a good thing to have. Plus, as
Yeah,
a
oh yeah,
guy, as a guy, I mean, you should know how to operate a firearm. I mean, there was one point in our
oh yeah,
country where, if you were a guy, you knew how to operate a gun, you knew how to carry a gun, right? I don't think that that's
yeah,
pretty much a universal thing anymore, but I think it should be.
yeah. There was once a time they had gun safety classes in school. Now the only gun safety classes they want in school are, oh, guns are bad. You need to get rid of them.
Yeah, yeah. There are some things, man, and you know what? There are some things, other things that I've learned later in life, man. Just only within the last couple of years had I ever gone camping, overnight out in some wilderness in a tent, But hey, man, I did it. I might be a late bloomer, man, but you know what? I'm gonna get all of those uh all of those sections of my man card punched one day, man. All I have to do is
Yeah,
keep working at it. My next
yeah,
goals, man, other goals I have, I want to jump out of a perfectly operating airplane. I want to skydive, parachute. That's another thing that's
yeah.
on my bucket list.
I'm
What
afraid of
else?
heights.
I want to do one of those big speaking competitions, man. I want to do a TED talk, man. Probably be gun rights. The
Oh
first
yeah,
hurdle is being good enough and finding a topic that's palatable enough for them to allow
yeah.
me to speak, and then do a very good bang up job on it, man. So those are at
Um,
least two things I want. Oh yeah, there's another thing I want. I want to get a motorcycle endorsement, right? And I want to learn how to wait, and I want to learn how to fly an airplane. These are things that are on
hey,
my
just
bucket list, man. And you see all this gray. Time is running out, so
yeah.
I'm going to get it done.
You ever heard of a guy named Richard Hughes?
I'm not
Nickname is
sure.
Fly.
Well, who is he? Who is he? What did he do? What's his claim to fame?
You ever? Well, his nickname is Flying Rich, and he
Okay.
flies airplanes. If you watch one of my other videos with John Crump, he got Flying Rich on. So if you want to learn to fly a plane, just learn from him. He's only crashed 2 times. I have to
You
pick
know
on
what?
Rich on that.
As long as you walk away from them
Yeah.
intact with a life that's worth living, keep doing it.
Oh yeah. Now, when it comes to concealed carry, people mostly carry modern stuff. Have you seen anything unusual people have carried that aren't like Glocks, modern 1911, SIG guns? You see anyone carry anything unusual like old surplus or black powder and think to yourself,
Nah,
wow,
I haven't, man, and thank God. I would. You know what? Nah. You know what? I'm not going to speak against it, man, because here's my standard take. I tell people, regardless of what gun you have, as long as you know how to safely operate it and you have the appropriate permission card, you know what? Go for it.
yeah,
I just think from a practical standpoint, for me, black powder probably is not going to get it done.
no, it's only one or two shots. Now, any old like Milsurps people carry Walther P38s, Beretta 34s, anything like that type. You ever see anyone carry those?
I tell you, working as a firearms instructor for, I don't know, the last 15, 16 years, man, I've seen a little bit of everything, man. Like I've seen guns that were made by companies that make household appliances, and you're like, wow, I didn't even know they made guns, man. But yeah, you know what?
Oh yeah,
It's you know what? There's always a new experience, man. There's
yeah.
always something that makes you go, well, I thought I saw it all, but man, lo and behold, here we go. I've finally seen this, and I didn't even realize that some of these situations could never occur. But I tell you, it's part of the fun of it, man.
Oh
I've
yeah,
been around for a spell, man, and I've seen a lot of interesting things over the years.
yeah. See where I come in at, if I were to ever get a CCW, the one thing I would love to carry, and I'll probably get left as a P08 Luger.
Okay.
There's nothing
Well,
wrong with that.
if you know how to safely operate it, go for it. Go
I've
for
only,
it.
yeah, I've seen videos on Lugers and how to operate them. I've never actually shot one. I've held one, but I want to learn. I could probably learn how to shoot it by taking it to a range. I've
You
learned
know
how to
what?
shoot.
Taking it to a range after you have, in some way, fashion, or another, had a good grounding and fundamental understanding of firearm safety. You know,
Yeah,
I just want to throw that caveat in there because I've seen too many circumstances in which someone buys a gun, God bless them, they take it to a gun range and then they haven't had any training whatsoever. And I'm not advocating mandatory training, but I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get training, and we
oh
can talk
yeah,
about that later. But go into a range and just commit a litany of safety violation after safety violation, and it's not a good environment or a good situation.
right.
Hopefully wherever you go shoot, whether it's indoors or outdoors, hopefully they have good management, good supervision, sound rules in place that are quickly and safely enforced.
Yeah, well, I think I only ever had one range officer come up to me at an indoor range one time. In the way I was shooting, I thought I was aiming perfectly, but he just said I was aiming just a little bit too high, so just to be careful. So I aimed a little
Oh
lower,
yeah,
but
well, as that was very nice of him, and I appreciate him for giving you some instruction.
oh yeah,
But what my standard tack is, that's not what those guys are there for. The range safety
right.
officers, their jobs are to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, make sure you don't damage property, and make sure you don't hurt someone else.
Yeah.
Now, when he starts giving you advice on how to shoot better, that's
Well,
crossing the line of being a range safety officer. But if he's got some good information, he
yeah.
politely approaches you, and if you're open to it, hey, great, have at it and have some fun, and maybe you're getting some good information.
Yeah, well, I think it's because the area where I was shooting at, when the bullet would go through, it hit styrofoam or something, so just to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, you go to any
Yeah.
gun range in America and look up. You know what? You might see a bullet hole or two somewhere.
Yeah. But other than that, he just said, because of the styrofoam, the lead can do damage, and we don't want that. That's
Well,
why he,
most modern ranges, they do a good job with hygiene. They
yeah.
make sure that they keep a good environment. Some of these air filtration systems I'm seeing in modern indoor ranges are far superior than the systems that apparently were in use when I first started carrying a gun, man.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
gun ranges, you go in and you could smell it and you could breathe it in. Of course, you didn't know you were breathing it in, but eventually at some point in time you might blow your nose and then you'll see all the powder and the soot on the tissue, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm taking this stuff in." But
Wow.
you know what? During that era, man, it was part of the experience. It was part of the experience.
Yeah. And that's why, maybe these people are trying to be more precautious with the range things in case they don't want to lose their license and have to shut down too.
Well, I've never owned a gun range, and I'm not sure if I ever want to own one, but they have not only a business to run, man, but it's one that requires them to be on their toes and to make
Oh,
sure that their
yeah.
customers are safe. You
Yeah.
know, uh, Whatever policies you have, you know, make sure that you follow them and you stay on top and you actually watch and you're actually in a position to do something. I tell
Yeah.
you some of the most interesting things that I see from time to time is you might have a range safety officer, indoors, far away from the range, and he's watching, every shooter in each booth by video. If
Yeah.
something unsafe was happening, there's no one there on the floor close to the lane where someone could actually intervene or do something other than, to give some instructions over a loudspeaker.
Yeah.
That's fine and dandy, man. But if the situation is really serious, I think you need someone there in person quickly.
Yeah. And another good safety tip too, if you're gonna buy a used gun, like most of my guns are used. Some of them have been used in the 1940s and early 1900s because of both world wars. If I buy a gun like that, my first thing is take it to a gunsmith, have them check it out to make sure it's safe.
Okay.
Because with all those older
Yeah.
guns, you don't know if anything's broken in there or if you shoot it, it can destroy the gun. You want to make sure everything's safe on it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Uh,
Well, here's the thing. Have I ever bought a used firearm? Yes. And I'll tell you one of the best places to buy a used firearm. Are you familiar with what a gun buyback is?
oh, you mean confiscation where they pay you small amounts of money just to turn in your guns?
Yeah, well, I call them lefts because that stands for law enforcement firearm transfer. And so what I used to do, man, and you know what? I don't do it as much as I used to. There was an era where anytime that there was a left, a gun buyback, I would be in attendance with a group of guys, man, and we were there with the sole purpose of buying used guns, and before they turned them into the police for some, paltry, prize or token, they
Yeah.
might give a $25 gift certificate or something, which is really insane. Because you know what, I will stand outside the venue, and if the local law enforcement is going to pay $25, I'll pay $50. Sure, why not?
$25 for a Luger or a P38, you spend 50 on it. And those things are
Most
collectible too.
Well, I mean, you have to know what you're doing, obviously, but
Yeah.
you know what? There are some really good treasures that turn up at those gun buybacks. The vast majority of them is going to be garbage, junk guns. But you know what? Even those
High
junk
points.
guns can really provide some value, and
Yeah,
I'll
Saturday
explain
night
it. I'll explain it
specials.
this way: if if the venue is paying a decent amount of money per gun, let's say they might offer maybe 40, $50 per gun, right? At some point in time, you know what? They're going to run out of money. Okay.
Yeah.
And so basically they're shut down. Now you're, out there and there's people still showing up. I mean, you
Yeah.
could literally get them for next to nothing, man. But yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had at the gun buybacks. The thing is that you have to, let the buyer beware.
Yeah.
If that gun turns up stolen, you're probably going to just be out the money. If the
Yeah.
gun is inoperable or needs significant, repair that far outstrips what the gun is worth, then that might not be worth it either. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's like treasure hunting, man. It's a great thing to do. I regret that I haven't done it in a while, man. As a matter of fact, I might try to find one. I will say one thing though. Back when James Craig was the police chief, he saw the folly of such boondoggles and didn't participate in them. However, our local county sheriff from time to time would still do them, but those things are worthless. The
Mm,
only people that turn in guns are actually law abiding citizens. They may be anti gun, they may be what I call a gun widow, maybe a spouse, passed on
yeah.
and they have guns in their house and they don't have anyone to give them to. So they just,
Yeah.
throw them away by giving them to the police department. But,
I read a story
which
from
is really
a
sad.
I read a story a while back. A woman in Connecticut turned in a World War II era STG-44.
Hmm.
You know what that thing is? The STG?
Not necessarily offhand, but what was the estimated value of that thing?
It was a select fire gun from World War II. I would say probably like 30,000.
And you're gonna turn that in for a couple of gift certificates to McDonald's or something.
Yeah, my guess, and that's funny because I work at McDonald's. Yeah,
Look,
it's
man,
still,
I'm not dissing McDonald's. I eat
yeah.
McDonald's. I eat
Hey, no,
McDonald's, man.
hey, no problem.
I'm not gonna say it's my favorite restaurant, but I go there.
Hey, it's a paying job. It's better than nothing.
There you go. There you go. It's an honest living.
But yeah, so what the STG-44 was a semi or a select fire rifle, which would crescendate into like the term assault rifle today, select fire intermediate gun. But it was the very first gun to introduce it to the modern world. You ever see an AK-47?
Yes.
Look at an STG-44 and AK-47 side by side, and you will see they are almost exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because when Mikhail Kalashnikov designed the AK, he said he never saw an STG-44, which
Okay.
is the year it was. Well, they had them out before 1944, but they had to hide it because Hitler had prohibited the use of rifles. He just wanted like MP40s and stuff,
Okay.
automatic machine guns. So when they hit it, they were calling it the MP-44. But
Okay.
they had them out. I think they had a few of them in service in 43. But anyway, the Russians had captured some because that's where most of them were sent. And after the war, Hugo Schmeiser and his family and a lot of his workers were sent to Russia. They worked with Kalashnikov on the design of the AK with fewer parts, but the inspiration and design was from the STG-44.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
you're a
it,
regular history buff, man. That's cool.
yeah, yeah, I studied military history, and studying history is why we have a Second Amendment. You do not want to repeat what other countries have done in the past.
Yes.
Because even after
Second
this,
Amendment
because
is a
after
good
this,
thing to have, man, because if you know your
yes,
history, you know eventually when you go through these cyclical cycles, you know, at some point in time, the government's going to get crazy ideas
yep,
about actually thinking that they're in control and want to establish some type of dictatorship. And the founding fathers, they were
yeah,
born of revolution. They said, hey, we might actually think that we may need another revolution. So, hey, let's empower
yeah.
the people
Well,
and
actually, we already
hopefully
are in one.
and hopefully the people who serve the citizens don't forget who's boss.
Yeah. Now we are kind of in a revolution right now, but luckily it ain't involving arms. Going on with Southwest Airlines, where the people are walking out and the flights are being canceled because of the whole vaccine mandate. Good on them. You know, they're saying, "Well, you have to get the vaccine." No, we don't, and they're not going to work until it's optional, not mandatory. That's the way we
Well,
fight. We don't.
what they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You know, if you want
That's
people to
right.
do
Yeah.
something, you should convince them, to do something. I mean, once you
Right.
start, forcing people to do something, whatever it is, man, it becomes the most
Yeah.
un-American thing I've ever heard of.
That's right. Now going back to the
And
history of
here's the
gun
thing.
control.
Here's the thing. Regardless of where you stand on the issue, about the vaccine, whether you took it or you didn't take it, whether you want it or you don't want it. Here's the thing. It should be your personal choice on what you
Yeah.
want to do. If you want to take it, if you think it's a good idea, you think it's good for you, fine, get it.
Yeah,
If you don't, then don't. But
that's right.
you know, but you know that whole concept. Yeah, I don't know, man. You know, where are we as
Yeah,
a country, man? Do we forget? You know that you know what we have rights.
that's right. We do have rights, but the government likes to limit what type of rights we have. Well, you can have a bolt action 5-shot rifle, but you can't have an AR-15. That's way too dangerous. Or you have the right to free speech, but you can't say this.
Yeah, but watch what you say. Old Ice Cube song, man. You old enough to remember Ice Cube? Not Ice
I
Cube,
heard
Ice
of him.
T. Ice T.
Oh,
Yes.
Ice-T, yeah, I heard of both of them.
Freedom of speech. Just watch what you say.
Yeah. But anyway, so back on the history of gun control a little bit. When the Gun Control Act of '68 was passed, nobody really knows this, but very few people, and one of them is the Pew Pew Jew, I believe, said they took that playbook from the Nazi era of 1938 when they enacted the law against the Jews having weapons. The Gun Control Act of '68 was taken right out of Nazi Germany by our
You know what?
politicians.
I wouldn't doubt it, man. I wouldn't doubt
Yeah,
it. But you know, you cannot commit evil against someone who can defend himself. You
that's
can't.
right.
And if you want to eventually commit evil or enslave the people, you have to make them helpless. You have to
And there's
disarm them.
and there's
And
actually
man, let
that's
me
one of the
tell
two
you,
things. There are two things that you need to control people. You need to disarm them, and you need to control the press. Because if you get the press to repeat the same narrative over and over, eventually people will believe it.
well, to a point, man. You know, look at
Yeah,
all these people who, you know, despite all the things that they've heard about vaccinations, you know
yeah,
what? Some people are like, well, okay, fine. I hear your propaganda, but I'm still not getting it.
same here. I'm not getting it either
You know,
because
like I
they
said,
rushed this
like I said,
vaccine
let
in quick.
let everyone make their
Make their
own
choice.
decision.
Yeah,
Mhm. I mean, if you make a compelling argument and you have overwhelming evidence, one thing or another, one position or another, you're going to probably convince most people to do something. If
yeah,
you can't rationally convince them to engage in some activity and show them where it's in their best interest, no, they haven't failed. You failed.
that's
You
right.
failed to convince them.
And that's right. And that's one of the other reasons why I've always had a thing for military history. And now, when it comes to military history, I like that, but I also like seeing all the small arms used by all the different countries throughout the centuries, from muskets to bolt action to select fire weapons today.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, wow, a Lee Enfield. I want one of those, which I have a number 1 Mark III Star, Indian
Okay.
contracted. I have a Carcano, and this one doesn't have a scope on it with the serial number 2766.
Okay.
If you get what those numbers on a Carcano mean with a scope, that was the exact one Lee Harvey Oswald used.
Oh.
But it's the same. It's the same length. It's a carbine. I love it. It's 6 shots, and people go, "Yeah, ARs are a lot better." To an extent, yeah, but if you want to know the history of how modern guns got to place, you go back to old surplus. You look at a Beretta 92, look at a P38. They're exactly the same.
No. Okay.
Same mechanism. Just one holds
You
more
know what,
rounds
man?
than the other and more modern.
I shouldn't say bought. Well, in a way I did. I applied for a license years ago, man. I mean, years ago. I applied for a curios and relics license years ago, man. And
Uh,
I would get all the surplus magazines, man, and see all the interesting things that came in. And I spent way too much
yeah.
time, you know, cleaning off that what's that gunk that's on it? You have to
Cosmoline?
clean Cosmoline. You had to clean the
Yeah.
cosmoline off the guns, and pretty much restore them
Yeah.
from the preservatives that they were putting on them to keep them from rusting out. But
Yeah.
I did that for a while, man, and I got kind of old, so I kind of let it expire. But that was a fun era in my life.
Oh yeah. But take a look at a Beretta 92 and a P38 real closely, you'll see, hey, these are the same. Especially like when you fire a Beretta and it empties at the end and it stays locked open. That's another design from the P38.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have all these people who like the cool guns like Glocks and ARs, and I have no problems with them. They're great guns. But in order to learn how those guns got to place, you got to go all the way back to World War II at least.
Yeah.
Because you look at
But
a Springfield M18.
you're probably not the average gun owner, man. Because let me tell you, the average gun owner that I run into, they don't want to know the lineage and the history of a gun and where certain
They just
features
want something that's reliable.
Mm-mm,
They
mm-mm.
just want reliable.
The people that
And
I come into contact with, you know what they want? They want a gun that if they're forced to use it in defense of their life or the life of someone else, that it's going
just
to
get
make
it.
them stop. The
Yeah.
gun is going to work, and it's going to make the person that they shot stop. That's all they want.
Yeah.
All of
And
this history and
yeah.
the lineage of certain features. The people I come into contact with, they don't care about that.
Well,
Mm-mm.
and but there needs to be a good reason too to tell them the history of different guns and the designs, because think of this: 1994, the assault weapons ban. That banned features of a gun and magazine restrictions to 10 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now look at a Browning M2 heavy machine gun. No threaded barrel, no pistol grip, none of the features. Not an assault weapon according to liberals. Well, anti-gunners in general. But when Bloomberg was running for his short term, he wanted to ban guns that held more than 3 shots. So when you hear them say, well, okay, we'll give up our 30 round mags, we still have a 5-shot bolt action. Explain the history too, like, well, a 5-shot has killed a lot more people than a 30 round mag and an 8 semi automatic AR. Because if you go back to combat, a lot of troops carried bolt action rifles, and they could go, what if they go after those next? So if you go in history too, like, well, this gun was used in this war and has done a lot more damage than an AR-15. That could get them to.
I hear you, and to your point, yes, if you had a firearm that had limited capacity, like guns and firearms that existed, decades ago, right? We're
Oh yeah,
talking like a long time ago to what you just said.
1940s.
You could, with sufficient practice and training, achieve that same level of dexterity and ability. My
Yeah,
point is this. Okay, I get it. You're absolutely correct, but I still want my 30 round magazine.
and I have no problem with that. The more rounds
Okay.
you have, the better chance at stop being a threat, especially if it's multiple people at
Am
once.
I less trained and less skilled with someone operating with equipment that is not as useful? Sure,
Mhm.
fine. Okay. But that just means I'm safer. And you know what?
Yeah,
I'd rather err on the side of safety.
yeah.
Mhm.
But that's why when people also say stuff like, "Oh, you have like a little 22," that ain't gonna be no good. Uh, I don't think so. Ask Charles Whitman that. He used hunting guns, and some of them are 22s.
You know what? Any firearm with
That's
a
right.
skilled and knowledgeable user can do a lot of bad things. Okay. But see,
And
we're not talking about bad people.
no,
You
we're
could
talking about
give
the
me
law-abiding.
you can give me a belt fed military firearm, right? I'm not going to do anything bad with it. As a
No.
matter of fact, I probably couldn't afford to shoot it. But here's the thing. I should be able to own a flamethrower if I want to.
No, you can.
A rocket launcher if I want to.
It's just hard to get those type of objects.
That's all right. That's beside the point. You know what? As a matter of fact, if I had the money and the training, I should be able to have an F-16, man.
Yep. If I had the money, I'd buy a Tiger tank. Those things are awesome. Armor on those things are very thick. You ever see the movie Fury?
What was the name of the movie?
Fury. Came out in late 2014. Has
Will
Brad Pitt in it.
Who
No, it's
in
a
it?
Brad Pitt.
Fury.
Fury.
I don't think so.
It's towards the end of the war about an American tank crew. But anyway, there's a scene. 3 Shermans take on a Tiger. And in this movie, they have tracer rounds for the tanks and the machine guns. You'll see the Sherman shells hit the tank and just fly right off and no damage done to the Tiger.
Okay.
It's awesome. Because I like the thick armor of the Tiger. It's so thick. The way to destroy those things, you'd have to get to the side or behind it where the armor was thinner to destroy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we just covered about everything and had enough time for a fun chat. So,
well, look, man,
in closing,
let me tell you this. I have something I want to tell you. I want to thank you for contacting me. I want to thank you for reaching out to me. I've had fun. You know, when you approached me about getting together, you know what? I'd rather do it now when I have the time than promise to do something later. And man, let me tell you, later, when you kick things down the road, something else is always there. So if I can jump on something and get it done, I'd rather do that, take action. But to the point I was getting at, I want to thank you for inviting me to your show, inviting me the opportunity of reaching out to your network and your listeners. And if you don't mind, I'd like to tell folks how they can reach me. If people are curious about what I'm doing and how they can get a hold of me, they can go to my website at DetroitCCW.com. They can go to my blog at legallyarmedindetroit.com. They can catch me on social media. I am Rick Ector over at LinkedIn. If you want to go over to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, my handle is at DetroitCCW. By all means, drop by and see what I'm talking about.
Okay. And before we go, just stay right here. I will end the broadcast.
Okay.
Okay.